Welcome to Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. If you're like me, or better, like my mother and my grandmother, because I don't think people do this much anymore, we'd go to the bank to get money to pay the grocery bill, to pay our electric bill, our gas bill, our water bill. I remember my mother used to actually go down to the electric company. She wanted to save the, I think back then, 10-cent stamp and hand deliver the money. So we'd go to the bank to get money to pay our bills. Well, what if we were dealing with food and you were one of the 500 organizations across New Mexico which feeds folks, mainly for free? Where do you get your food, your money? Well, you go to a food bank, and today we're going to talk to the Roadrunner Food Bank, which distributes 16 counties to organizations, about 350 different organizations, food, because they have people who are hungry, and they want to make sure that they get their food, fresh food, food that's regulated, so they go to the food bank, and there are one of the Roadrunner Food Bank is one of 4 in the state that serves actually 33 counties. So today we're going to talk to the Director of Communications, Sonya, about what's going on with the Roadrunner Food Bank, what is the need out there, and how you and I can help. We'll be back with Sonya right after this. Stay with us.
Hey America, now there's a place where we can join our voice, Real America's Voice. Real America's Voice is coming to a town near you with a grassroots approach, bringing the real voice of America together. Real America's Voice is growing our family of networks across the country, and soon you could be part of that change. Download the Real America's Voice app and join other Americans just like you across the country, coming together for real.
This show is going to make you hungry, or it's going to make you feel like you'd like to contribute. Of course, the new year is almost here, and there's a lot of opportunities to do some good in the new year, if that's one of your resolutions. I'm not sure if it's mine, but let's maybe mark that down. Sonya Warwick is the Director of Communications with the Roadrunner Food Bank. Thanks so much for being a part of the program, and thanks for all what you and the Roadrunner do for the community.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for having us on and helping the community, educate the community about the work that food banks and really the Hunger Relief Network do across the state of New Mexico.
And again, happy holidays to you.
Can't believe it.
New Year,
yes.
And all that is still with us, going to be here. The Roadrunner, as I said, it's a bank.
Yeah.
Not of money, but bank of food.
It is. So if you think about what a food bank does, we really take in food from all kinds of different locations. It's millions of pounds of food over the course of the year. And think of us as a distribution center. So if you've ever been to a large scale for-profit entity like a Costco or a Sam's Club, those type of in scale and size, that's about the size of Roadrunner Food Bank. So we're bringing in food from food industry partners, from donors who just bring us food from their own food pantries, contributions that the community makes, and of course, we're reaching into communities all across the state of New Mexico to make sure that people who need help with basic necessities like food have access to it.
And I've seen the video. You can go online and look at your video to help explain what your food bank does and really how huge it is.
Yes, and I think for people who aren't familiar with hunger relief work and aren't familiar with how nonprofit organizations supply food out in the community, please come and take a tour, come and volunteer with us. We'd love to have new faces in our food bank and learning more about the impact that you can have when you're coming through our doors on a regular basis to come and help.
What will they see when they take a tour?
Yeah, so we give them kind of a tour of the history of how food banks started. We show them really the warehouse, the different types of volunteer work that happened in our warehouse. We talk about different programs that are impacting people who are facing food insecurity, and then also, inviting them in to come and volunteer on a regular basis or get involved with us in more ways, whether that's if they want to give of the funds that they have coming into their own household, or inviting other people to learn more about what we do in their circle of friends and their circle of connections.
And where are you located?
Well, we're based here in Albuquerque, of course. We're kind of right up the street, or I should say really off of I-25 and Jefferson area. It's an industrial section of town. But even though we're based here in Albuquerque, people don't realize that really the impact that we're having touches communities all over our state. We are driving food through our fleet of trucks and making those foods available, if you will, to people who are struggling with hunger, who are visiting a food pantry in their area. We partner with schools to provide food to low-income families, of course. We work with senior locations or low-income senior housing sites. We work in tribal communities to bring food to underserved areas. So we're really looking for partnerships where we can be a natural fit for people who are facing that kind of need right now.
Now, regarding the schools, we all pay our taxes, well, most of us pay our taxes to support our schools, to support APS. And we know that students tend to get maybe breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and even weekend backpacks full of food. I thought that was taxpayer driven. I thought that we were paying for all that, but now you're saying the Roadrunner?
Of course, for people who qualify and their kids who qualify for the free and reduced lunch program, absolutely. That is definitely a taxpayer driven function that is passed down from the feds through the state, obviously, into schools. But we often know that people don't have all of the food that they need to cover all the meals in their household. And that's really where nonprofits like Roadrunner and similar organizations come forward. So we have a program called our Childhood Hunger Initiative. We work in 100 schools all over the state of New Mexico, not just here in Albuquerque. And we're providing basically enough food for that school. And really it's being delivered to the school, but it's really for the families to come and pick up that extra food that they may need to feed their family. So we're really focused on Title I schools where most of their families qualify for free and reduced lunch.
And that would be the South Valley and Albert. There's some schools, for example.
And definitely rural communities as well.
So is there a pantry at the school where the parents come and?
Some can, yes. So we partner with the school to make the hunger relief program work for them. So for example, Garfield Middle School, they have an on-site food pantry where families can come in and pick food items 2 to 3 or 4 days a week that kids are in school that work for their household, take those groceries home, and then utilize those groceries to feed those kids and their families.
And so the Roadrunner is the one who supplies the food to that particular food pantry.
Absolutely, yes.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah.
You're one of 4 different food banks in the state that supports 33 counties.
Absolutely. So Roadrunner Food Bank, even though, like I said, we're based here in Albuquerque, we're serving 16 counties directly. There are 4 additional food banks who work very similarly as us. They have a set number of counties that they're responsible for serving in those respective communities. And all in all, we work together where we can to bring food to make sure all those counties are covered. And then also it's serving up to about 500 organizations, mostly faith-based, but lots of different organizations that we're partnering with.
So a faith-based, give me an example of what kind of
So for example, we partner with a lot of Catholic organizations and their St. Vincent de Paul programs. We'll partner with food pantries like the First Unitarian Church, for example. They receive food from us. So lots of faith-based entities who are operating not just their church, but operating a food pantry in addition to providing those faith services.
So for that example, do they receive the food for free from
Yes,
Roadrunner?
Absolutely, yeah. So in terms of where the food is going, the client and the person receiving the food always receives the food for free. Now, in terms of the partnership that we have with the local food pantry, for example, we do have what is known as shared maintenance fees, and that helps underwrite some of the storage costs, some of the distribution fees that we have to absorb. It's very small in nature, and we've been able to reduce those over the years to really let those organizations focus on feeding people who need those services. And, it can be maybe, a couple $100, if that.
The Roadrunner has been around for years. You've been with them for 15 years,
yes.
Sonya. What have you seen regarding hunger and the term hunger insecurity or food insecurity? That's kind of a relatively new term. We used to say folks were hungry. What does food insecurity mean to you?
Yeah, well, and we kind of use those terms a little bit interchangeably, of course. And, we know that food insecurity really is a state of being, right? It means that you don't have enough food and meals to cover all of the meals that your family need over a period of time. It could be a week, it could be 2 weeks, it could be a month. And really, even though it is a USDA term, it really helps people understand what is very low security, insecurity, what is just food security, insecurity in general. And it really gives us a baseline for understanding like who is really struggling to put food on the table in any community in the United States.
So the food insecurity doesn't mean they don't have food for a month. What does it have a definition?
It doesn't give a definition. It really is looking sort of at that physiological need that we all have, right? You know, we all need food to live and thrive and survive. And without it, it definitely impacts people's cognitive abilities. It impacts kids' abilities to learn. It helps, when we have enough food, it helps us be an active member of society.
What have you seen changing-wise regarding the need? Again, we think as a society, we're progressing, we're becoming better, we're becoming healthier, stronger as a society, and there'd be less hunger at that point.
Yeah, and we actually saw some of that during the pandemic. So we looked recently at data, and because of the influx of food that we were getting from different sources, including the federal government, we actually kind of made a dent in hunger, believe it or not, during the pandemic. Now what we're seeing
during
is,
the pandemic, you made, why is that? Why would be during? Because everything went kind of south during the pandemic, except hunger.
And need went sky high. But at the same time, what we were also seeing is increased level of support, primarily coming from some of the federal legislation that was passed at that time that allowed food to flow through food banks and hunger relief organizations in order to meet that gap. Since a lot of that legislation is no longer, you know, and that funding is no longer available to us, it means we have far less amounts of food available to us. And what we're seeing is hunger is beginning to spike again.
But the need has, even during COVID, the need spiked.
The need was very high.
It's just that we could meet that.
Yeah.
I just was saying, as a society becoming more educated, I mean, after almost a decade and a half for you working there, you'd think things would improve hunger-wise in our country.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that also has to do with making sure that people have enough wages, enough income to live, right? You know, people who are hungry are in poverty. They may be earning a wage that doesn't cover all of their living expenses. They may be a retired senior who has thought they have saved enough, right? So there may be a child involved, and you know, last I looked, you know, our children are our future, and we need to make sure that we're providing as much as we can for them to be successful.
How has inflation affected the Roadrunner Food Bank? I was at the grocery store. I did not buy it. Trust me, I did not buy it. I saw a bag of potato chips at the end aisle, advertising. I think it was $7.35 for a bag of $7.35.
Yeah. It's been a challenge, been a very big challenge, just like for you, any consumer who is visiting grocery stores. Obviously, inflation has impacted everyone, and it means that dollars that people are contributing to us to buy food, they don't go as far either. So we definitely need that additional help. And to put it in context for you, you know, the height of the pandemic, we distributed about 58 million pounds of food, and now this past fiscal year, it's between 32 and 34 million. And that's also why we're seeing that need spike again. But to your point, inflation is a driving factor of bringing people back into food lines. And it means also food that we are purchasing is a lot more expensive than it was even 2 to 3 years ago.
Oh, and what are people saying at the food bank about this inflation, about the I mean, I go and say to the checkers all the time, don't people mention the price? I mean, aren't they shocked at this? Yeah. Or are they receiving government subsidies to be able to purchase it?
You know,
I mean, it's just astounding.
Yeah, it is. And I think for us, we're just trying to be cognizant of the inventory that is flowing into our warehouse and making sure we're trying to maintain inventory levels at a time when things are very expensive, and we don't know how long this will last.
Do they discuss at the Roadrunner Food Bank the fact that do they really need to charge this? Because I think when inflation hit, they were able to get that money, but now is the cost really there? I mean, is there a discussion at the Roadrunner Food Bank about, is it really that expensive to produce this food as it was, or are they able to receive that funding so they keep the prices up?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I think in general for us, we view it as our responsibility to make sure that inventory is coming in and purchasing that product. Now, do we get absolutely wonderful food donations? You bet. One of the things that I think is amazing about the Food Bank Network is we share with each other. Right? So, for example, produce is often coming into a lot of the Arizona food banks. A lot of the produce that they can't use, they're like, hey, could you use a truckload of produce? Absolutely. We'll coordinate getting it up here to Albuquerque. Our volunteers will get it sorted. I mean, we're talking millions of pounds of food and produce, like 11 million, 12 million pounds of produce alone. That nutritious food aspect that we're so honored to provide to people who may not be able to kind of purchase that sort of item on their own.
So you receive that food from other places, donations from farmers, supermarkets.
Yes, absolutely.
And you buy millions and millions of pounds of food. Comes locally, internationally, comes to your warehouse, is inspected, of course, for food safety, and stored.
Yes.
And what kind of a paid staff do you have at Roadrunner?
Yeah, so there's probably a little over 100 staff at the food bank. People I don't think understand sort of the gamut of that. And that includes people who are in our warehouse who are receiving food product that is coming either as a donation or that we've purchased. We also have an entire distribution team who is conscientious about pulling different orders for those locations downstream of us to make sure, okay, they ordered 5 cases of X item and 3 cases of this, and making sure that that order is getting placed on trucks appropriately when it leaves the next day for their location, no matter whether that's here in Albuquerque or 4 hours away. We have staff that work with our agency network, so those 500, 300 plus organizations I talked to you about, making sure that we're keeping an open line of communication, like what do you need, what are you seeing, how can we help?
Has technology changed?
Oh my goodness,
yes.
Absolutely, yeah. One of the things that has been amazing, I think, that we've tried to do is make sure we're communicating with some of the people that we serve by email or text messages, so when distributions that we're running change because of whatever reason, weather, or maybe the truck broke down, we can communicate with them. And it's been definitely something we have relied on, I would say, in the last 2 to 3 years.
Do you use robotics at the Roadrunner Food Bank?
No, not at this juncture. Now, I know there's been talk about, automating some processes for sure. That is a costly investment, absolutely. But no, not at this juncture.
You also receive donations and you have fundraisers. And I read online that $1 gift can distribute 5 meals. I don't understand that equation. I don't understand that math.
Yeah.
$1 equals 5 meals?
Also, well, a couple things. We are purchasing in bulk, bigger bulk than you would purchase at the store. Of course, we're buying by the tractor trailer load, by the semi. So we can get some savings there. But also, we do receive a lot of our product as food donations that are coming from food industry partners to us. So when we're getting that product in, often it's the product may come to us for free, but we may need to pay for the shipping to get it to us, for example. So it's not as expensive as it would be. So that's how some of those savings occur.
You also receive, I think, federal funds and state funds, or just state?
We receive actually federal food, if you will. And the federal food comes to us through a program known as the Emergency Food Assistance Program, or also known as TFAP. It's the acronym for short. And really that is funneled through the state and then to food banks on our behalf.
It's actually food, not
It's
dollars.
actually food, not dollars, yes. It's food items that USDA secures from farmers all across the country, and then is utilized to take that food item and distribute it through, well, really through food banks, but there is an intermediary where we have that relationship with the state.
The type of food, Sonya, over the past 15 years you've been at the Roadrunner Food Bank, how has that changed?
Oh, dramatically.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely, dramatically. I think for a long time when I first started at the food bank, it was mostly canned good items, or what we'd call dry good or box good items, because refrigeration and freezer space are a premium and can be very expensive. And the facility that we were in at that time, different building, much smaller, we didn't have enough to basically take in those good quality food donations that help us make a complete meal. So whether that is protein items like meat, for example, or dairy goods, or produce, for example. And now I would say in the last probably 10 to 15 years, we've really grown the types of nutritional foods that are available.
So before it was boxes of cereal, I imagine, oatmeal, cans of soup, cans of beans, all of that, dried food that you stored on the shelves. Now you're able to produce food, meat, protein items.
Absolutely. So we are able to secure some of those donations, including dairy products as well, and then produce. And having adequate refrigeration in that infrastructure has been key in being able to kind of provide a mix of food items and mix of nutritional food items out to people who are struggling with hunger.
Do you include snacks and cookies and cakes as well?
Absolutely.
Oh, you do.
Yeah,
Not just nutritional, even though we have a problem with diabetes in this state, and some of us are sugar addiction.
Oh, yes, I'm a chip person myself. I understand that, but yeah, you know, if it's for example, a cake that is coming donated from one of our grocery store partners, we are certainly not going to turn that down. We recognize that people who are facing food insecurity have birthdays too. They have celebrations. In fact, a person recently shared with me, she said that was the only way she was going to celebrate her birthday when she was facing food insecurities, because she picked up she picked up a cake at a local food pantry, and that was how she celebrated her birthday, and it was the only way she was going to be able to celebrate her birthday.
Tell us some other cases that you've run into, Sonya.
Yeah, I've been really honored to be able to attend food distributions. Pandemic, non-pandemic, probably at this point visited hundreds of distributions across the state, and I'm always humbled by the type of people you meet. I think for me personally, just being able to make that connection and knowing that we're providing a basic need, but also in the fact that, you know, we were so isolated for so long. I remember coming to distributions, and sometimes I was the only in-person face that client was going to speak to that day. And these were people who were often facing tragedies on their own, a death of a loved one from COVID, and I was so honored to be able to receive their story, and that they were really willing and trusted me to be able to receive that.
Tell me some of the stories, Sonya.
Yeah, so there's one that stands out 15 years ago, and then there's one that stands out more recently. I'll tell you the more recent story. This was a gentleman that I had met in a distribution in the South Valley, and this would have been probably last December or so. And he was coming through one of our drive-through distributions, had 5 children, single father, raising them all on his own. And I said, "What's brought you here today?" You know, and he says, I'm desperate for food. He goes, "I work construction. I don't get enough consistent hours, and it's really impacting my ability to stay in my home." He goes, "In fact, I'm on the phone with the bank right now to figure out how I can stay in my house with my kids. And I'm coming here. I've never visited a food distribution before. I'm coming here because I want to make sure that my kids have something to eat." And he said, "Until this situation improves, I may be coming to these locations more frequently."
What type of a location was it?
It was a drive-through food distribution that we were hosting, where he could come through, fill out some basic paperwork, drive through, pick up the food items that he needed, and then be on his way for whatever he needed to go do next. Yeah.
You hosted that at a community center, a senior center?
Actually,
or?
because distributions were so, it was such a strange time. We actually did that in the parking lot of a movie theater, believe it or not.
And 15 years ago, what was it one that stood out 15 years ago?
Yeah, this was a gentleman I had met in a community called Meadow Lake, which is not far from Las Lunas. And he had worked as a firefighter his entire life, and he broke his back towards the end of his career and needed to be on disability. He could no longer do that job. It was unsafe for him to do the job. And when he walked up, he was using a cane, moving very slowly. You know, he was probably in his early 60s. And he said, "I am relying on this food distribution. I'm so glad it is here because I really don't have anything to eat right now." He said, "It's just tough to be able to live off my disability benefits and not be able to have enough at the end of the month to afford food." And he goes, "That's why I'm here." And I still see his face in my head all these 15 years later, and I think about him and I wonder what happened to him. But
thanks for sharing those,
absolutely.
Sonya Warwick.
Yeah, they're people just like me and you.
That have faced hard, challenging
Absolutely.
times. What would you like to share? We have just a couple minutes left. You have a Super Bowl event coming up.
We do. So mark your calendar for February 3rd. This is a fundraising event for the food bank. It's soup and dessert. We recruit restaurants.
Oh, soup and dessert. I like that.
And
I like dessert and soup. Dessert first.
However you want to do it.
Okay. Or just dessert.
And it's a fundraiser for the food bank. We are selling tickets, and you can visit our website for ticket information and location information. It's held right at the food bank. Saturday, February 3rd from 11 to 2. We recruit up to about 40 restaurants who come in and People can vote on their favorite. They can select the People's Choice winner for their favorite soup, their favorite dessert. There's live entertainment that we have with a local band. We often have a silent auction attached to it as a way to raise additional money during the event. And it's a great way to introduce yourself to the food bank if you've never come. Like I said, right in our warehouse, we have probably somewhere between, 800 and 1,000 people who attend that event every year.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah.
Very nice. In the last minute we have, what would you like to share that I didn't touch upon that people might be surprised about?
Well, let's see.
Many things, I think.
Yeah,
but
I really want to thank people for remembering that people are struggling with basic needs right now, and that nonprofits rely on our support from our community to make sure we can provide those services. So I want to thank people for always being mindful of that, and I want to thank them for their willingness to give food, to donate money, to attend events like Super Bowl, and investing in those nonprofits that are providing those basic services.
And of course, they're volunteering their time as well. You can't get along without that.
Yes, volunteers are very critical.
And your website is easy to find. Just go to Roadrunner Food Bank, and I understand that Map the Meal Gap, about 1 in 5 children feel some insecurity, and 1 in 7 in New Mexico are at risk of hunger.
Yes.
And again, that $1 gift can distribute 5 meals.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very good. Thanks again for what you're doing for the community, for coming
having
back here on KCHF TV's Issues and Answers, and serving 350 different organizations in 16 counties. And what's neat, you've invited people to come visit, to take a tour.
Absolutely, yes. We definitely, please call us. Don't just pop in, let us know you want to come, and we can find a date and time that worked for you, work for us, and we'll definitely, find a time to have you come and spend an hour learning more about what we do.
And they should call or email, or how should they contact
Either or, they can call us or email us. Our volunteer team does lots of tours. Our fundraising staff does tours. So you can just email info@rrfb.org if you need somewhere to start.
And I bet once they take a tour, you find a lifelong volunteer.
Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. Yeah, we have had so many tours where people are like, this is fascinating, I want to come and help.
Sonya Warwick, thanks again, and thank you for watching this program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Make it a great week with your family. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
The New Mexico Modern Child Support Family Program works to benefit both parents for the purpose of improving children's lives. It provides the basics of child support, but goes further by helping parents step up to find better job opportunities that get them back on track to paying their monthly child support obligation. Find out how the Child Support Step Up program can help your modern family. Contact New Mexico Child Support today to learn more.
Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program or to purchase a copy of any Issues and Answers program, visit sunbroadcasting.org or call us at 505-345-1991.